Good evening, and welcome to Foundations of Success, an evening with Coach John Wooden. We welcome you to Western Michigan University and to Kalamazoo, and a special welcome to our out-of-town visitors who have ties over the years with Coach Wooden. We really appreciate you being with us here tonight. This will be a memorable event, and we'll all go home better people as a result of hearing from the wisdom of an American legend, Coach John Wooden. Our first speaker tonight has been with Western Michigan Athletics for 25 years as a coach, administrator, and now athletic director at Western Michigan, Kathy Beauregard.
It is indeed another great day to be a Bronco. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Western Michigan University and the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics is truly honored to be able to provide all of us joined here this evening with an extremely rare chance to share the stage and be humbled as we welcome Coach John Wooden to Kalamazoo. This will be a night to remember, and this opportunity has been brought to you by our very own WMU basketball coach, Steve Hawkins, with his assistant, J.D. Dunlap, who have the relationship with Coach Wooden over all of these years. It's a relationship that really made this all possible. And wow, the opportunity for us to associate our WMU basketball team, our Bronco student athletes, with Coach Wooden and Coach Hawkins is any coach's true dream. This dream has become a reality for us tonight. I would like to tell you just one very quick story, because many of you know the history of how Coach Hawkins arrived here in Kalamazoo. Just to remind you, he came in as the first assistant that was hired by Coach Robert McCollum, who was here for 3 years. After 3 good seasons, Coach McCollum accepted a position elsewhere, and it was time to identify our new Bronco head coach. It didn't take 2 minutes for the student athletes to march one by one into my office, passionately speaking on behalf of Coach Hawkins to be our next leader for our Bronco basketball team. As we began to look for replacements, Steve obviously came to mind and was extremely interested in the position. As I became consumed with hundreds of phone calls and resumes for the position, I couldn't help but notice the first name on Steve Hawkins' resume, Coach John Wooden, as his top reference. Well, if you know our world of intercollegiate athletics, we do usually try to check resumes to find out if that reference was true, and it absolutely was. So how many thousands of resumes have Coach Wooden been listed on? I began to research it and found out what a true relationship they had, and it didn't take me long to recognize that everything I knew as growing up as a coach, that I've read and heard about Coach Wooden, was absolutely what we would be getting with Coach Hawkins when he became our new head coach. We truly are blessed with Steve as our basketball coach, and I also believe that Coach Wooden is popping his buttons tonight with pride to share in his accomplishments as a tremendous players coach and a true role model for all young leaders of today and for tomorrow. I really am a strong believer that nothing just ever happens. Our future is not a place we are going, but a place we are creating. And Coach Wooden has exemplified this throughout his historical tradition-filled life. Each of us has to take charge in creating our future. We have encouraging friends and family, coaches and mentors who all play such important roles for us on our journey. This is exactly what Coach Hawkins did with his life and continues to do every day while coaching our WMU basketball team. Our ultimate goal in life is not to possess things of value. It is to become a person of value. And each of us does this with decisions large and small along the way based on principles and not preferences. Growing up with Coach Wooden at his side, along with a loving family, Steve took advantage of creating his future for experiencing many different circumstances that have been true lessons in character building that I know he is sharing with our Bronco student athletes every day. I hope you recognize these priceless opportunities that are in front of them. And I know it certainly was one of the proudest days of my history here at Western Michigan to announce Steve Hawkins as our new basketball coach. And along with that, we got Lana, which was an added plus to our community. Steve has hired a tremendous staff and assembled an outstanding group of young men who we call our Bronco basketball team. This event will assist our program with continued support, and it is necessary for us to be able to remain a championship program, to enhance our athletic facilities, to be a leader and a force in the MAC and the NCAA. Everyone is talking about the Broncos. This means everyone is associating them with this great institution, Western Michigan University and Kalamazoo. Our Broncos need us to continue to assist them to enhance our attendance, scheduling, television opportunities, success in the classroom and on the basketball court, and to keep Coach Hawkins and his staff in Kalamazoo. Thank you tonight for supporting your Broncos. All right, we'll do one on that. Thank you for supporting your Broncos with your attendance here tonight. We truly are thankful for your sponsorships that allowed this event to join in our proud basketball tradition. The tradition includes many ties with Coach Wooden. One of our Hall of Famers, Bill Perigo, I know is with us tonight in spirit, along with Harold Gensigan, another Bronco great. He just happened to be coached by Coach Wooden in high school at South Bend Central. Coach also has connections with the Bronco brothers, Tom and George Schlatter, who starred in basketball at Western Michigan. And George played on the first team Coach Wooden coached in Dayton, Kentucky. And Tom helped Coach Wooden with the football and basketball team. Tom is also a great Hall of Famer. Coach Wooden, thank you for being here in Kalamazoo. Thank you for your guidance, your leadership, and love you have shared with Steve and JD. And we thank you every day for the role you had in creating their futures through your divine intervention. It's now my pleasure, and thank you again, to introduce our basketball coach, Steve Hawkins.
Wow, what a night, huh? Coach Wooden in Kalamazoo. We finally made it happen, and it's a tremendous honor to be here and introduce Coach. I want to thank all of you for showing up tonight. We just came from a great dinner, and I want to thank all of you for showing up and supporting our basketball program. So you know, we will directly benefit from all of the ticket sales here. We are planning on sending our team to Europe this coming spring, where we'll be in Italy for 3 days, as well as Greece for 6. And we're really looking forward to that. And this night will go a long ways towards helping get our guys there. So we greatly appreciate your generosity from the bottom of our heart. Now, you guys are going to get something out of this too. It's not just a donation. We got Coach Wooden here, and I'll make this short. I was just reading, there was a recent study conducted in Americans that showed that the number one fear of all Americans is public speaking, and the number 2 fear is dying. So, by deductive reasoning, if you're going to a funeral, it's actually better to be the guy in the coffin than the guy giving the eulogy. So I'm not going to be up here long. Coach Wooden, I met Coach Wooden, JD and I met Coach Wooden really at about the same time. We were both campers. When I was in 7th grade, I attended Coach Wooden's camp. And that was my first time being around Coach. He was still coaching at that time. I later had the chance and the opportunity, when I graduated from high school in 1980, to start to work at his basketball camps at California Lutheran College in Thousand Oaks, California. And I was a counselor at that time, which basically meant I was an assistant coach. And I did that for a couple of years. And after 2 years, I really wanted to be a coach. And they pulled me in at the end of that second year, and they asked me if I would come back the next year and be the head counselor. And I was a little disappointed with that from the standpoint that I wasn't going to get to coach, and I had my heart set on coaching. But then I remembered that one of the perks of the job was to pick up Coach Wooden in the morning and to take him home in the afternoon. And that was a half-hour drive in each direction between Thousand Oaks and his condo in Encino, and some cherished memories. For the next 4 years, we had 4 to 5 camps per summer and 4 to 5 days per week. I picked up Coach Wooden and took him home in the afternoon. And rarely were we alone. In the morning we were a lot because it was a 6:15 pickup. But in the afternoon, our guys can relate to that. In the afternoon, though, I had the privilege of driving people such as Sparky Anderson, Tom Landry, who was the summer training camp of the Dallas Cowboys, was at Cal Lutheran. Roger Staubach went with us one time, and I was terrified the whole time that they were in the car, thinking, my God, please don't let me crash. If I am the person that kills Coach Wooden and Tom Landry, this is not going to go over well at home. But we made it through it. We made it through it, and before long, I heard the same questions from media members, coaches, a number of different people, and I heard the same questions, and I often heard the same response, and the consistency in Coach. And by the time we got to the fourth year, a reporter asked a question, and I kind of snickered in the front seat, and Coach knew what I was snickering about. I had heard the question a lot that summer. He said, "Steve, why don't you go ahead and answer this one?" So I did, and Coach said, "I don't think I could have said it better myself." So anyway, the thing about Coach, the exact same company that ran Coach Wooden's camp also ran Pat Riley's camp for a couple of years, and I had the same job, fortunately, to take Coach Riley, pick him up at times, and I was taking him to the airport. We actually got into a conversation about Coach Wooden, and I asked Coach Riley what he thought made Coach Wooden so successful. Coach Riley talks a lot about the core covenant, and how pure the core of any organization, whether it's a business, a team, a family, how pure the core has to be. If it is impure at the core, it will rot from the inside out. And the intentions of people at the core, your captains, your leaders, and certainly the CEO of the family or of the team, has to be pure, and their intentions have to be very clear, and it has to be something that everyone else can believe in. And I don't know of a more pure core than John Wooden. There is no question that the example that he led from the inside and every day was as pure as can possibly be. Now, as I was writing down my notes last night to introduce Coach today, SportsCenter comes on, and I see an interview with Pete Carroll, the USC head football coach, and they asked Pete Carroll what he was doing over the summer. He visited with John Wooden. When JD and I were visiting with Coach Wooden just about a week and a half ago, he was excited to tell us about Kalamazoo's own Derek Jeter. And when Derek Jeter comes to California to play the Angels, he calls Coach to make sure that Coach is going to be at the game. I can remember visiting with Coach about 3 years ago. He was excited as could be because Tony Gwynn was coming to visit Coach that day. And Coach was excited. They come from all over to listen to him. And there's a lot of joys I have in coaching, but sharing Coach Wooden is certainly one of them. I think we have a little video piece real quick, and then we'll get to Coach here.
Perhaps the most respected coach in the history of college basketball, John Wooden's legacy of leadership and success defies limits. UCLA teams coached by John Wooden scaled unprecedented heights that no future organization in any sport is likely to approach. With 10 NCAA titles in 27 years, including 7 in a row, 4 perfect 30-0 seasons, 88 consecutive victories, 38 straight NCAA tournament victories, and 20 Pac-10 championships. This UCLA coach was nicknamed the Wizard of and the first person to be into the Basketball Hall of Fame twice, first as a 1960 and then coach in 1972. It was a question posed by his high school teacher that inspired John to contemplate the definition of success. Out of this reflection, he created the Pyramid of Success, a plan illustrated by a pyramid which is built of all the qualities required to succeed in life. It is with this powerful concept that Wooden developed so many championship teams as well as leaders of character and integrity.
The leader has faith in people. He believes in them, trusts them, and thus draws out the best in them. He has found that they try to rise to high expectations.
Coach Wooden led the UCLA Bruins to an astounding number of nearly unbreakable records, but his model of success is not confined to athletics. Wooden's definition of success is not rooted in trophies or honors from the game, but in the daily battle to achieve excellence. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you are capable of becoming.
I believe only you as an individual can validly determine whether or not you have been successful, because you're the only person that really knows whether you have made the effort to become the best of which you're capable of becoming.
From business and art to government and sports, Wooden's model of leadership and success has inspired generations of leaders, and its influence reaches across the world.
In the profession that I have chosen as a coach, there are lots of joys. There are very few that I enjoy more than sharing Coach Wooden. Tonight we get the chance to share Coach Wooden with you. Ladies and gentlemen, John Wooden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The next person I want to introduce is someone that really helped make this night possible. I got a phone call probably about 3 months ago now from a former Bronco here at Western Michigan University, Lynn Guerin. Lynn, along with Coach Wooden, helped develop the John R. Wooden course. And Lynn called and said, you know what, I think we got a chance to get Coach Wooden back to Kalamazoo. And could we pull this off? And without Lynn's work, there's no way that we could have. Coach is going to speak on the Pyramid of Success, and then Lynn will go through a question and answer session with them that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Please help me in welcoming back to Western Michigan University, Lynn Guerin.
Good crowd tonight, Coach.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. You know, we're going to spend a little time tonight, Coach, talking about foundations for success. And we want to start that discussion with probably the most important, or one of the most important foundations in your teaching and coaching, and that's the Pyramid of Success. So could you just share a little bit tonight, Coach, on the origination of the pyramid, how it came about, and why you decided to construct the Pyramid of Success?
Well, thank you, Lynn. In my early days of teaching, I found myself a little bit disappointed at the way parents judged the success of your youngsters in my English classes. If they didn't receive an A or B, some parents would make the youngster or the teacher feel that they had failed. Of course, the average grade of C, I found most parents found was most adequate for the neighbors' children because they're all average. But not having any children of my own at that particular time of school age, I didn't understand that feeling. Later on, I saw into it a little better than I did at that time. But I wanted to come up with something that I hope would make me a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision something which to aspire, other than just a higher mark in the classroom or more points in some athletic endeavor. And I didn't know how to go about it. I know I wanted success. I think we all should, but I'm not sure we'd all agree on what success is. I wanted to coin my own definition of success, not being comfortable with Mr. Webster's, who defines it more or less as the accumulation of material possessions or the attainment of position of power or prestige, something along those lines. Worthy accomplishments, of course, but not necessarily indicative of success, in my opinion. So I wanted to come up with something that I hoped would make me a better teacher. And I didn't know how to go about it. But I finally, through some things, my father, what he had tried to teach me when I was in grade school, a farm in southern Indiana, and discussion in class, and a little verse. My dad tried to teach me and my brothers that never try to be better than someone else. You have no control over that, and if you get too engrossed or entrenched with things over which you have no control, it'll adversely have an adverse effect on things over which you have control. But never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's in your power. And then I ran across a very simple verse that said, "At God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed," he cried. "The Master said, thou didst thy best. That is success." Those things brought about my definition of success. Peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to become the best of which you're capable. We're all equal in that respect. We may not be equal in other ways. We're not born in the same environments. We're not all the same intelligence. We don't look alike. We're not equal in those respects, but we are equals, having the opportunity to make the most of what we have under the conditions that exist for us. So I coined that definition to try to help me and help those under my supervision, but it didn't seem to be working. And after a while, after trying to analyze it, I decided it's because it was a definition, something rather abject, that I needed something you could see. And here again, as most things I learned from someone else, I recalled from the hidden recesses of the mind something that I'd seen many years before called a ladder of achievement. Someone had taken a ladder, 5 rungs in the ladder, and they'd named each rung of the ladder some particular trait or characteristic that they felt was necessary to get to the top of the ladder, where we'd all like to get, even though we might disagree at times on what we consider the top of the ladder to be. So I couldn't use that, but it gave me the idea of a pyramid. I started working on this when I was teaching in high school in South Bend, Indiana, in 1934. I completed it when I was teaching at Indiana State University at Terre Haute in 1948, just prior to going to UCLA. But I won't go into, it'll take a long time to go into all the things. Let me just mention 2. The cornerstones for success, in my opinion, to gain that peace of mind, without which I don't think we have much, are industriousness and enthusiasm. You have to work hard and you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't really enjoy what you're doing, no matter how you think you're working, you're not working as best you're capable of doing. And that's so important. Those are the 2 cornerstones for success. You know, from my children's book on the Pyramid of Success for Children, I define success as happiness in your heart and knowing you tried your best. And I don't want my daughter here. She's sitting here somewhere.
Right in the front row.
Yeah, well, there she is, right now. And she says she understands the pyramid now. She didn't understand that peace of mind stuff, but now this happiness in your heart, she understands that better. But there are blocks that made up that I felt were necessary, with 5 blocks in the foundation, and 4, 3, 2, 1, leading up to success with going up from the last block, which is competitive greatness, leading up the apex on which success rests. According to my definition, I have patience and faith. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to have patience. Good things take time and should. We don't want it to be that way, but that's the way it is. And we should accept that and have patience and not be criticizing our youth for lack of patience, because they're going to have a lack of patience, but they think all things should be, they think all change is progress. But you know, as we get older, we forget that there is no progress without change. So we must be patient. We must have patience with our youth, and then we must have faith. We must believe that things are going to turn out as they should, providing we do what we're capable of doing to help that become reality. I think oftentimes we want things to turn out just the way we want them to, but we don't do not what we're capable of doing to help that become reality. So I think patience and faith are at the very top, leading up to the apex. But there are many blocks in the structure that I thought about and changed as the years went by, and changed the structure in the place in the structure where I kept some of them, but it would take a long time to talk about all those.
You know, Coach, when you talk about those blocks of the pyramid, and you mentioned industriousness, I know there's one of your favorite poems by a fellow named Grantland Rice, speaks to industriousness. Would you mind sharing that with our audience tonight?
Well, Grantland Rice was a great sports writer. No, you remember him because he wrote in the 20s and 30s. Of course, I remember him, but you don't. And he wrote something, How to Be a Champion, and said, in part, you wonder how they do it. You look to see the knack. You watch the foot in action, or the shoulder, or the back. But when you spot the answer where the higher glamours lurk, you find in moving higher up the laurel-covered spire that the most of it is practice and the rest of it is work. There is no substitute for work. Don't be looking for the shortcut, the easy way, the trick. Work.
Thanks, Coach. Let's go a little bit further up the pyramid. We're going to talk on a lot of topics, but let's spend a little bit of time on the pyramid. Let's go to the heart of the pyramid and talk about skill. What's your definition of skill?
Well, you must be able to execute things not only properly, but quickly. You must know what to do. That's not enough. You better be able to do it. That's not enough. You better be able to do it quickly. Most of you wouldn't understand this, but if you drove the freeways in Los Angeles, you'd know very definitely that just knowing what to do is not enough. You better do it. You better be able to do it quickly. You're not going to be around very long. I had some basketball players that were great shooters, but they weren't quick, couldn't hit any shots. They didn't help us very much. I had some others very quick, oh gracious, but they couldn't shoot. They didn't help us either. You have to be able to do things not only properly, quickly, whether you're a surgeon performing delicate surgery, whether you're an attorney in the courtroom, whatever it is. Emergencies are going to come up, and you must be able to execute what's needed, not only properly but quickly.
Great. Coach, as we work a little further up the pyramid, I know one of the most challenging blocks on the pyramid is the block called self-control, and probably many of us can relate to that. Do you ever have any challenges? I heard Coach Hawkins talk about a pure inner core of the man. Do you ever have any challenges, Coach, with self-control in your early days in coaching?
Yes, and I didn't handle them very well at one time, but I learned as I got older, became a little more patient, and learned a lot of other things as time went by. Yes, I made some terrible mistakes in my youth just because I didn't have the self-control that I should have had at the particular time, and I took offense to something that I should have just let it pass by instead of reacting in the physical point of view from it. But I won't go into those things.
Coach, how about let's go to competitive greatness. Again, I think you've got a very unique and powerful perspective on really what it means to be a great competitor. Could you share that with our audience tonight?
Well, that's another poem.
But even the definition.
Yes. Well, definition is being at your best when your best is needed. The competitor enjoys it when it's difficult. There's no great joy in doing things, ladies and gentlemen, anybody else could do, and yet most of the things you and I do in our daily lives, anybody else could do, and whatever we're doing, we should try to do it to the best of our ability, but there's no great joy in doing the very simple things. The poem says, beyond the winning and the goal, beyond the glory and the fame, he feels the flame within his soul, born of the spirit of the game. And where the barriers may wait, built up by the opposing gods, he finds a new and deeper thrill to take him uphill, to take him on the uphill spin, because the test is greater still and something he can revel in. The competitor enjoys it when it's difficult and revels in it. But you can't do that unless you're prepared, and failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
Coach Hawkins mentioned what a profound influence you've had on his life as a mentor and a coach. Could you share who are some of the men in your life that have had that same kind of profound influence? Who were your coaches and mentors as you were coming up?
Well, first of all, my father. I think he was a wonderful man. Never heard him use a word of profanity. Never heard him be critical of another person. Accepted things as they were when he had reason to, and give us so many things as the creed, the 7-point creed, and the 2 threes that he gave me, and various things of that sort. That's where never compare yourself with others, I got from Dad. Never compare yourself. You always tend to compare with those who you think has more. More of what? Generally speaking, it's more of material things, and material things don't really bring lasting happiness. They can be temporary, and material things all get away. They don't bring lasting happiness. Things that don't get away that bring the lasting. It's like passion and love. Passion is temporary, love is enduring.
Coach, when you talk about other mentors and role models, I know one of your early coaches, a fellow that was Glenn Curtis. Coach Curtis, in your early basketball years, any stories there that might have shaped how you grew up as an athlete?
There was one. I thought the player my first year in high school, I didn't like. I thought he was a bully, and he tripped me, and I know he did it on purpose. And I came up fighting mad, and I went after him, and I didn't have any more sense. He was bigger than I was and all that, but I went after him, and the coach stopped it, and he sort of blamed me. And I said, you're not going to treat me that way. And on the floor, I just took off my shirt, and I took off my shorts, I sat down, took off my shoes, took them off, laid them on the floor, and hopped out there. And it hurt me because I wanted to play. I went around about a week, and then finally he came around and talked to me and got me to come back out. I'm glad he did, but I reacted a little too quickly. And so I learned a lesson there. I learned one from my grade school coach, too, Earl Warner, who gave me a licking one time along with some others. I had it coming, and when you have it coming, you'll accept it in pretty good shape. But I thought I was the best basketball player on the team, and we had a game scheduled with another grade school. We played it on an outdoor court, and he came around in the morning and said the game had been canceled. We would be able to play that afternoon. I lived about a quarter mile to a half a mile away from the school, and I went home at noon, and I came back in the afternoon, and he said that Hazelwood was the other team they'd called, and they were going to be able to make it after all. And I said, well, that's too bad. I won't be able to play because I didn't bring my shirt. We just had overalls, and we had a shirt we put over it on. And a different type of shoes, not basketball shoes, but something different. And he said, that's too bad. Well, I thought he's going to send somebody home to get my shirt. But he didn't. He said, that's too bad. So I took off, and I ran home and came back, and they're getting ready to start the game, and he didn't start me. And we weren't doing too well, but as the game went by, I got up and walked and said, Mr. Warner, we can win this game if you play me. Oh, I know that, he said, but the score is not that important. You come back and sit down. I know you're very tired. That's the last I pulled that.
Other coaches that had an influence on not only who you are as a coach, but as a man. How about Ward Piggy Lambert, Coach? He had a profound influence on your basketball philosophy, didn't he?
Yes, and I'd say in other things. He was a wonderful person, man of very, very extremely high principles. I might say that I believe it was in 1949 for the first NCAA tournament. Purdue won the Big Ten and were invited, and he wouldn't go because he didn't think that intercollegiate athletics should be played in places like Madison Square Garden. Indiana University finished second at the Big Ten, went, and they won their national championship. But he stuck up for the things that he believed very much. Was a competitor, a spirited competitor. And I taught so much from him. I think maybe the heart of my pyramid, as the years went by, he was indirectly responsible to things, condition, trying to get youngsters in the best possible condition, skill, teach them not only properly but quickly execute the fundamentals, and third, they must play together as a team. Team spirit was the third thing. They're the heart of the pyramid, and not realizing at the time, I think at the time I was developing that, it's probably from his influence without my realizing it at the particular time.
The influence that your father had in your life, Coach, the most important lessons, you mentioned a few that you learned from your dad. How about dealing with adversity? I know your father went through some very challenging things in his life, as your mom did. What were those important lessons on dealing with adversity?
Well, he never complained at all. I think he had reason to complain on occasions, and when we lost the farm, he didn't blame anybody, and I think somebody should have been blamed, and he just accepted the thing and wouldn't tolerate his sons being critical of other people. And we used to try to catch him, as you're getting older. We couldn't catch him, but we'd try. But he was a calming influence. He learned to accept things, and I think it was a great help to me without my realization when I eventually got into teaching sports. Learning to accept things, and I think I was able to do that primarily for him. For example, my senior year in high school, we lost a championship game by 1 point, the very last, and I think everybody on our team cried, except me. I didn't cry. And I'm sure I felt as badly as the others, but I think that I'd been taught to do the best you can and accept that and accept the consequences. And I believe that came from Dad, and I think that carried on a lot of things. I tried to get my basketball teams to always accept things, and I never wanted excessive exuberation because you outscore somebody in the game, nor did I want excessive dejection if you're outscored in the game, because if you know, and you're the only one who know that you've done the proper things to prepare yourself for the game, there's nothing to be sorry about. And I believe that I was able to do that reasonably well, not 100%, but reasonably well. I mean, I'm perfect,
Well, it's interesting you would use the phrase that you weren't perfect. Was your dad a disciplinarian, Coach? Was there ever a time when he had to take Johnny Wooden behind the barn?
Well, he gave me a good whipping one time because my older brother had thrown a pitchfork of manure in my face when we were cleaning out the stables, and I called him some names and went after him. I didn't go after him with the pitchfork, thank goodness, but I did go after him, and Dad gave me a good whipping. I had it coming, and that's all right. And I don't believe I've used profanity since that one day.
Well, as a matter of fact, Coach, didn't that actually translate to just a few simple rules that you had for your basketball teams?
Well, I stuck with 3 rules pretty much as time went by. I didn't have these in my early years, of course. As time went by, by the time I got to UCLA, I had 3 rules that I stuck to pretty carefully, and one was be on time. I was a nut on having to be on time for everything. And the second was not one word of profanity. And the third one was to never criticize a teammate. I used to say, that's my job. I'm paid for it. Relatively poor, but I am paid for it. If I were coaching today, I don't believe I could say that.
Well, in this day of high-paid coaches, what was the highest salary you ever earned at UCLA?
$32,500.
That's amazing, isn't it? Let's transition to other very important role models and mentors and foundations in your life, Coach. How about Nellie? How about the story? How did you meet your darling Nellie?
Well, my first year in high school, I lived on the farm. Commuting, I saw her. I didn't think she saw me, but I saw her. I thought, there's a cute little gal. And that summer, back on the farm, and I was plowing corn, and I was resting the team near the dirt road that ran by there, and a car drove up, and Nellie's dearest friend, and Nellie and her friend's brother had a car, and they drove out and got out, and she got out and motioned me to come over. They all got in. I wouldn't go over. I wouldn't go over. I stayed there. And finally, after a while, they drove off. And then later, when the school started, first class, I just happened to be heading toward, I think it was algebra, and she and her friend were there, and they stopped me and said, well, why didn't you come over? Talked to us when we drove all the way. Driving 8 miles was something then, in the old car on the dirt roads. And we drove up there, and I said, well, I was dirty and perspiring. You'd have made fun of me. And she said, I would never make fun of you. That's the only girl I ever dated.
Any problems, Coach, as a young athlete growing up in Martinsville with a girlfriend, coach's rules or courtships? Any challenges there?
Well, he didn't allow any dates during the basketball season, and he lived very close to Nellie. He kept the blinds pulled pretty well, but on occasions we felt he was peeking in.
Coach, I think it was in high school, if I have my facts right, that you and Nellie really sort of started a ritual, a pregame ritual that I guess lasted all the way into your coaching.
Till the end of my coaching days.
All the way to the end, yeah. Would you share that with us?
Well, just before the tip-off, we'd be in the circle for the games just to start. I'd get in my position where I could. She played in the band. So she'd get to come to all the games. So she couldn't play, but she held a cornet at them. I got a position where I could look up at her, and she'd give me I'd give her a nod. For every game, for my coaching, I always got in position to do that, and that happened throughout.
How about, I think you and Nellie, your initial plans to get married got off to kind of a challenge. I think August 8th, 1932, I think was your anniversary. You would have just celebrated your 73rd anniversary. Could you share a little bit of that, Coach? How did that whole marriage thing get started, and how'd that work in the first few days?
I will, but I don't think these people will be very interested in that. But I had, after my senior basketball season was over, I played a little bit of barnstorming, picked some money, and I had $909 nickel in the bank. That's pretty good then. And we were to be married on a Sunday in Indianapolis. Her father wasn't well. We were just going to Indianapolis to be buried by a minister that I was 30 miles north of Martinsville. But they married one of her sisters and her brother. Well, before that, I should say, when the bank closed and I didn't have this money, I didn't know what to do. But as her girlfriend's father, who was brother well-to-do Miller, he called me in and said, what are you and Nellie going to do, Johnny? I said, oh no, I haven't had time to think yet. He pushed an envelope and said, pay me back when you can. He had $200 in the envelope and said, you go ahead and get married and get going. I'd already got my first position, which was at Dayton, Kentucky. And so we did. I went up to Indianapolis, and my brother and his girlfriend, she had a car, and they drove us to Indianapolis, and we were married. In the afternoon, went to Bamboo Inn, had dinner afterwards, saw the Mills brothers make their first appearance in Indianapolis on August 8, 1930. They've been my favorites ever since. August 8, 1932. But I maybe shouldn't. I'm going to tell you anyway. I got acquainted with them after we went to Los Angeles years later. And I told them about that one time. I said, you know, my wife and I were just been married in the afternoon, and went to hear you know, and I thought you were going to sing all night. You just kept on. The people kept on courting you, and I'm down, down, down. I said, Nellie and I just been married. We were tired.
Yeah.
We want to go get some rest, you know. But we stayed in a little hotel for that night and walked about a half mile the next morning to the bus station, and I caught a bus at 6 o'clock in the morning and to go to Martinsville, where my college coach, Big Lambert, picked me up at 7 o'clock the next morning in Martinsville and took me to Vincennes, the very southern part of Indiana, where I was his guinea pig in a coaching clinic. So that was my honeymoon with Nellie.
Coach, you enjoyed 53 years, 53 wonderful years with Nellie. Just a remarkable love story. Could you share? I know there's a couple of real special poems or verses that you think about when you think about Nellie. Could you share a couple of those with us?
Which ones are you thinking about?
Yonder and Lucy. Okay.
Well, I like Wordsworth. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove. A maid whom there were none to please and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one was shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be, but she is in her grave and know the difference to me. Yeah, I've always liked that. And then, Swen Nader. I like poetry. My players all know that, and many of them write me poems. The one in particular, Swen Nader, that some of you that follow basketball may have heard, has written me well over 125. And he works for Costco now. And I spoke for them up in Seattle, and conclusion remarks, questions, and one fellow said, Coach Wooden, are you afraid of death? I said, that's a rather odd question to ask a 93-year-old man, but I said, no, I'm not going to intentionally hurry it up, but I'm not afraid. I've been blessed in so many ways. My family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all within an hour or two where I am, my extended family of friends, and living in Southern California, the many things that there are available. I've been blessed in so many ways, and then I said, out yonder, I'll be with Nellie again, but not till after death. Now, I'll show you how this Swen Nader does. One word, and he'll come up with a poem. And a couple of days later, I get a poem entitled Yonder. When he said, once I was afraid of dying, terrified of ever lying, petrified of leaving family, home, and friends. Thoughts of absence from my dear ones brought a melancholy tear once and a dreadful, dreadful fear of when life ends. But those days are long behind me. Fear of leaving does not bind me, and departure does not hold a single care. Peace does comfort as I ponder a reunion in the yonder with my dearest one who's waiting for me there. Just like that, he comes up with them, and he's got one on, I think, almost anything I've ever said.
You know what, let's just talk just a minute. Swen Nader, I think, is one of the most remarkable athletes and stories, Coach, in UCLA history, and came to UCLA really as a pretty raw recruit, not a lot of basketball talent. Could you share but some powerful stories that relate to what Swen learned at UCLA?
Mm-hmm. He's an orphan from Holland, and
later came to this country with grandparents, and they eventually came to Los Angeles, and he graduated from high school, never played basketball or sports. Here's a man about 6'11", and just about as ideally built as to be big as anybody you ever saw. And he, one of my ex-players who was coaching at a junior college in Los Angeles, saw him working in a gas station, and he got him to come to junior college. Never played basketball. In his first year, he kind of pitiful. He'd never played. But he was a hard worker, worked hard, was a good student, and stayed another year, and he played and kept improving all the time. And he, my ex-player, his coach, thought that he might have possibilities of developing because of the way he'd improved. And at that time, I had a player coming in that I thought was going to be a really great all-time player, and that's Bill Walton. But I didn't have anybody of any size to work against him, and I thought, well, maybe if he comes. So I offered him a scholarship. If he'd come, I said, you'll probably never get to play very much, but you'll have the opportunity to work against one that I think is going to be an all-time great. You're going to have work against me every day. Now, you might go, he wasn't recruited, I don't believe, by Division I schools, but I said, you can go to probably a Division II or Division, pray all the time, but you'll not be playing against the talent that you'll have just to work against daily. And I said, if you do that, I think because of your size, there are not too many like that, I think you finish, you'll have a chance to play professional basketball if you're interested in that. Well, he did, worked hard. His first year against Bill Walton was kind of pitiful. He got better and better. He worked hard, and I think his third year against Bill Walton, he gave Bill all he wanted. And we would have been in pretty good shape even if I'd have lost Bill. I think that's how much he'd improved for that last year. Then he coached at El Cajon College down in, what is it? It was down in El Cajon, Christian Heritage College down in El Cajon. Then later he left there and has been working for Costco ever since. A wonderful, wonderful young man, writes, sings. I have a lot of songs he's sung to me, and one he's written both words and music, and just a wonderful person. His two grown daughters, college graduates, big, 6'3", two daughters. Big. He's pretty big, and his wife's good size too.
We also, even as a well, as someone who was Bill Walton's understudy, having Bill Walton, that kind of kept things interesting, didn't it, Coach? What was it like to coach someone of that kind of talent, Bill Walton?
Great. It was. You know, a lot of pressure on them to do well because they're expected to do well, and you're expected to do well with them. But I've been fortunate in the great players they had. Were not unselfish naturally. I didn't have to build that into them. They were unselfish to begin with. They're both outstanding students, honor students, and things like that have helped tremendously. Walton, from the time he entered the practice floor each day, is as perfect as anybody you'd find. Worked hard, unselfishly worked hard. Now, when practice was over and he left, that's when I began to worry. It might be the group taking over the administration building, or stopping traffic on Wilshire Boulevard, or interrupting classes to get petitions signed to impeach Nixon, and but I never objected to what I don't care what their feeling is as far as politics is concerned. Have something, believe in it, stand up for it, but still stay open-minded. And I felt the same way about religion. I don't care what the religion they have. I want them to have something. I want them to believe in it, but I still want them to stay open-minded and listen to the other fellow. And Bill had every right. That was the anti-establishment era. And he was strong in his political beliefs, and that's fine.
Coach, did he ever challenge? I know you had some rules on dress and appearance and clean shaven. Did he ever challenge you on any of those rules?
He challenged me twice. I won each time.
How'd that battle go, Coach?
Well, the first one was after his sophomore year. He'd been Player of the Year, and we had an undefeated national championship team. And from the time the season was over until October the 14th, when you have practice, the kind of practice, we have picture day the next year. I don't know what it is now. The rules have changed so much, but he'd started growing, letting his hair grow and growing, mutton chops went all over. Yeah, looked horrible. And he came on October the 14th to draw his uniform. That's when we have picture day and media day, and you can't have, you couldn't have organized practice that day. You get these other things out of the way, and he came like that. I stopped him. No, Bill, you can. Why not? I said, you know why not. He said, we don't have the right to tell me how to wear my hair. I said, you're right. I don't have that right, Bill. I just have the right to determine who's going to play, and we're going to miss you. And he tells this story every now and then. He's been asked, do you think Coach would have backed it up? And he said, well, I got fixed up in a hurry, didn't I? So he'll never know.
Yeah. And Coach, you also knew you had Swen Nader sitting on the bench, didn't you?
Well, at that time, I don't think Swen was ready. but another time, I did have some rules. At one time, on all trips, my players had to wear coats and ties. And after East Bill, I guess maybe his, I don't know which year, junior year, I believe he came to me and he said, our chancellor's come to school in turtlenecks and Levi's, and a lot of our faculty are, and you make us wear. I said, well, you got a good point there. So all you have to do is be clean and neat. That's all I required from that time on. So we're leaving on a conference trip. Come to get the bus, take us to the airport, and Bill showed up, not clean and not neat. So he didn't get on the bus. You get the airport on your own, fine. If not, just stay at home. And he got there. All right. I'm glad he did, but, but nevertheless. But youngsters test you, all of you. Your children test you. Don't get upset at them because they test you. Don't give in. Gracious sakes. Don't give in. You start giving in, you're whipped. But at the same time, you stay open-minded too. And times change. You have to make changes along with society at times.
You mentioned our children, Coach. Discipline, do our children need discipline today?
Of course they need discipline, and they want discipline. I believe that. Not punishment. You're disciplined to help, to prevent, to correct, to improve. Punishment antagonizes. It's difficult to get positive, productive results, in my opinion, when you antagonize. So, but you have to be fair, and you're disciplined. I think they want it. I really believe that. I think it's down deep. They want discipline. They want to be told what to do. They want to, yes. And when you're right on it, it's okay. My daughter is here, over there. You know, when she graduated from grade school, from high school, the senior, graduating senior, they have a party. And she wanted no time be in. I said midnight. She said, well, she answered some of her friends, and they said 1 o'clock. I said midnight. And she said, I can get in trouble for midnight. It's as easy as for 1 o'clock. And I said, 1 o'clock. So she's in before 1.
Coach, you had such a remarkable career at UCLA, and even tonight as Coach Hawkins shared your amazing record. I mean, I think there's so many people remember the last 12 years, but you coached a lot of years at UCLA before you won a national championship. Were you just as successful those years?
In my opinion, but not in the opinion of the alumni. Well, I think I learned. I think I did a better job as years went by. I think I learned more. If I'd been as capable in my earlier years as I maybe feel I was later, I think we might have done better. I'm not saying we would have won national championship and we'd had a better chance of winning national championship. A lot of things in retrospect, I can look back and see, I shouldn't have done this. At the time, I did what I thought was right, and that's exactly what I should have done. You mustn't let the alumni or the media or anybody else, you're in position to know what's right much better than they are. And you must not be swayed by that, but you also got to analyze and accept your own mistakes and not try to blame others, hide them. You make them, we'll all make them. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. Learn from them.
How about managing expectations? What does a coach do for an encore when he goes 30-0 and wins a national championship?
Today is the only day that matters. It's the only day you can do anything about. Make each day your masterpiece. The past will never change. Anything that happened will never change. The future's yet to be, and you've got to just concentrate on today, and if you do that, the future will take care of itself. Doesn't mean you're going to win, because maybe you're not good enough to win, but you come closer to realizing your own potential. Like Swen again on one of the poems that you got from my idea. Today, it's a long poem, but one verse he says, Coach, you're a hunter and a seeker, not for silver or for gold, not for treasure or for pleasure, or for anything that's sold. You're a connoisseur of living as you move along life's way, with no worries of tomorrow, for you have found today. And that's from my stressing today so much to the players at all the time, and I'll try to do that in my family, and do what you can today. Don't put it off. Do what you can today. And if you learn from the past, of course, but the past is not going to, just what you learn will help you for the future, but that's all. That's all.
Coach, for an athlete that grew up on in a small town in Indiana and went to Purdue, heaven's sakes, how did you get all the way to UCLA to coach basketball? I mean, was that fate, or shouldn't you have coached in the Big Ten? Or in the Mid-American Conference?
Well, I was happy at South Bend. And I actually believe that had I not enlisted in the service, I never would have left my teaching position at Central High School in South Bend, Indiana. But things were changed when I came back. I lost my home, and I didn't like the way some of my friends returning from the service were being treated, and I didn't want to work for them anymore, and I left. And while I was trying to determine position that I was offered at two high schools, Marion, Indiana, and Kokomo, two very fine schools for my profession. And while I was doing that, my high school coach, who had been the coach at Indiana State University, left. And President Tyree called me and offered me the position to come as head basketball, baseball coach and athletic director and teach it. And I talked it over with Nellie and said, well, let's take a chance on the college. If we do all right, I'll maybe get a chance in the Big Ten. If we don't, I'll have a job. I want to get a job, and I'm worried about getting a job. And so that's where I went. And after we did pretty well, and Jimmy Powers here was on the team. We went my second year and played the national tournament. And we lost in the championship game in Kansas City to Louisville. Put some good teams, BYU, they were in NAI then, and some others. And so I had a chance at Purdue, and I wouldn't go there because they weren't treating the guy right, I didn't think. And I was over with a job in Minnesota and a job at UCLA. And I wanted the Minnesota job, but I didn't want to keep the man that I was replacing as an assistant. I didn't think I would be in the best interest of either one of us. But it got to the point where a decision had to be made, and they were trying to make a position for him. And they would have called me at a certain time, and they didn't. And the UCLA called at the exact time, wanted an answer, and I okayed it. And about an hour later, Minnesota called and said everything's all right. And I said, I'm sorry, I just an hour ago committed myself, and I can't go back on my word. And that's how I happened to go there. Because now out in the Midwest, you know, they tell me that there was an unseasonable snowstorm in Minneapolis. I went in April, I believe. It was an unseasonable snowstorm. And well, the lines were down and they couldn't get the telephone to call me. So that's how close I come to going to Minnesota. And then I insisted on going to UCLA on a 3-year contract. I wouldn't go for less than 3 years. They didn't want to give me 2, but no. So after 2 years, the Purdue job opened up now. It's a little different under change of administration, and now that's what I wanted. But UCLA reminded me that I was the one that insisted on a 3-year contract. They thought I'd honor it because they intended to, so that's how I stayed there.
So all of those banners could have been hanging in West Lafayette, huh? Or in Minnesota, Coach?
Maybe none of them. You never know. You never know.
Coach, when we were flying out today, we were just sharing a couple of things, and you just kind of reached into your pocket and pulled a couple of 2, 3 interesting things that were in your pocket that has a lot of significance. Could you just kind of do the same thing for the audience tonight? What do you got in there?
Well, I've got several things. Not money. Well, I've got a little thing that I've carried on teaching.
And the key things that are on that says, God bless our teachers, for they take a hand, open a mind, and touch a heart. Mm-hmm. What else you got there?
Well, I've got one from my favorite person that's lived in my lifetime.
And who was that?
Mother Teresa.
And on the back of this, it says, I see God in every human being. Okay.
She also said that you can't live let's see. You can't live a perfect day without doing something for another without any thought of return. And she also said, let's see, another one that I can't think of it right now.
Life. Forgiveness
sets you free. Oh, a life not lived for others is not a life. And then the third thing that I pulled out is this cross. It has the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. It has the monad and the heart. This was given to me by Reverend Frankie Davidson, my minister, South Bend, Indiana, just before I went in the service, and I've carried it ever since. And the ball games, that was always in my hand. The officials would have known that, they'd appreciated it.
Coach, did that have any impact on your control or your behavior with officials?
No, of course not.
How about technical fouls, Coach? Did you ever get a technical?
I had 2.
Yeah, you want to share? Only 2. Want to share that a little bit with us?
Well, I didn't deserve them. Well, maybe 1 I did. But I didn't mention how many I might have deserved and didn't get. You have to be very careful. You got to be careful. You have steady officials. You have no officials. They're different, just like we're all different. No 2 of us are alike. Some are touchy, some aren't. You got to be careful. You have to know them. I said some things that I'm ashamed of. Sorry, I used to. And they never heard me use profanity, but I might say, call them the same at both ends. No, I'm telling them they're not, really. I don't say that, but I call them. And I'd say, don't be a homer. I'm telling them they are a homer. I wouldn't like anybody to tell me that. If I were officiating, I wouldn't have been a good official.
What did you use that program? Didn't you? Was that helpful, Coach, to catch their attention?
Not really. People laughed about that program. I always had some notes on that. One thing I wanted to have on the program is to remind me if the game got tight, I wanted to know the poorest free throw shooters and the best free throw shooters, the opponent. There comes a time when late in the game you have to play more aggressively to get that. I mean, we would never foul intentionally, of course. No. But we would foul, and we would be a little more physical in going after the poor free throw shooter than we would after the better free throw shooter. So I wanted to remember just who they were.
Okay. Well, that's one indication I think of one of your greatest traits was your ability to pay attention to details, and there was no detail too small when it came to coaching basketball or shaping your teammates or your players' lives. Where did that whole idea of fundamentals, and where did you start when it came to teaching fundamentals, Coach?
Well, teaching in high school about the socks, I think you're referring to. I showed my players how to put on socks, because usually they pull them on quickly. I bet somebody who've experienced that, and there'll be wrinkles around the little toe and heel, and that's where you get blisters. And I wanted to take their time. I'd show them how, and then pull up the sock, and open the shoe, pull it up, and then eyelet by eyelet. Don't just grab the ends and tie them up, gracious sake, and then double tie it. And I did that. I did that at my basketball camps that Steve will know about, and he was telling about that today. Always started campers showing the campers how to put on their shoes and socks, and so to avoid blisters. And also, I found out even in college that most of my players wore shoes too large. And maybe that's because when they're children, all you parents, when you're buying your children's shoes, you get them a thumbnail too long. Am I right? And then by the time they grow into them, the shoes are worn out. Children never get to get shoes that fit. And I found out that a lot of players, I wanted no slippage at all. I wanted the toe right at the end of the shoe. Of course, basketball, on a hard floor, and the game is movements and quick cuts and change direction, change the pace and things like that. And you make yourself very susceptible to blisters. And I think that paying a little more attention to socks and shoes, I think would help prevent that.
Great. Coach, one of your I think more powerful phrases is failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Could you share just a little bit your practice preparation and how you went about preparing for a UCLA practice? How did you organize all that?
Well, I think that was one of my strengths, was practice organization. It usually would take 2 hours. It would be planning the practice schedule, and my practice would never run over 2 hours. But I wanted everything to the minute and move quickly from drill to drill. And my players oftentimes would go the 3-by-5 man, because I always carried a 3-by-5 card in my hand, and I'd have the minute to minute what we're doing, and when the blow the whistle changed, I wanted them to stop immediately and move quickly to the next. I learned these things as I went along, but which helped. I might revert back a little bit and tell you, how many of you, I'm trying to think of his name now, the actor.
Bo Bridges?
Bo Bridges. And maybe probably some of you have seen him. He has a brother too. And my daughter can tell you about him because she babysat for him at one time. And I shouldn't have said that. She might try to start to guess her age, and she wouldn't like that. But he came out for basketball at UCLA and for the freshman team, and he said he was all ears. And when I met with the freshman first day, and I said, "Now, young man, first thing I'm going to show you how to do is put on your shoes and socks." Yeah, goodness sake, I want to play basketball. But he said he didn't make the team. He wasn't very good. And some years later, though, at the basketball camps, and Steve might have been there at this particular time, I don't know, but he was married, he had children, and he brought his son up to my basketball camp at California Lutheran College, and he said he wanted to find out if Coach had learned anything. And he said, first thing I did was set the campers down on the floor and say, "Now, young man, first thing I'm going to show you how to do is put on your shoes and socks." And first, Bo said he hadn't learned a thing in all those years.
Coach, I know you think about things just a little bit differently in a lot of ways, and simple things, simple courtesies like politeness and courtesy and sportsmanship, how important those are as an athlete. I know one of the things that you were proud of that you mentioned to me was when you'd get letters from visiting locker room attendants. Could you just share that a little bit? What was that all about?
Well, I never felt it was necessary to leave gum wrappers or orange peels all over the dressing room floor, or towels. There should be a receptacle for everything, and put them up, clean it up. Don't leave a shower running. Don't leave soap on the shower room floor and all that. I insisted that they do that, and nothing. That's just a common courtesy that we ought to do. But if you don't, you know, they're young men, and they hurry and they'll forget at times, but if you sort of stick to it, they'll do it. And the managers, I never wanted to feel the managers as servants. Not that. The managers are there helping, just like they're part of it, just like the players and the coaches are. I didn't want them to feel it was their service. They had to be doing all these other things for them.
Did those simple things help to build pride and responsibility in the team?
In my opinion, yes, but who knows?
Coach, talk about the amazing coaching career that you had. Could you just share what you would consider as some of the more gratifying moments? You had many national championships, many awards. What are some of those moments that stick out in your mind?
Well, some of the things that pleased me is when I took Clarence Walker to the tournament. Jimmy Powers can tell us about this. I had one Negro player on my team, and well, he didn't get to play very much. They wouldn't let him in, so we were invited to that invitation. I wouldn't go. Next year, we did better, and we were invited again, and I wouldn't take him. And then finally, I was prevailed upon by the NAACP and his parents to go, and so I took him, and we had no problems. We had problems on the way over, stopping to eat in some places, but otherwise, I think it helped break the barrier line for that tournament in Kansas City, because they were able to do that from that time on. I think that one of my players, Curtis Rowe, after one national championship team in the dressing room, when the reporter said to him, "Well, Curtis, tell me about your racial problems," and Curtis straightened up and said, "You don't know my coach, do you? He doesn't see race, he sees ball players," and he turned and walked away from him. That's as meaningful to you as a ball game. Square, and some things like that I think stand out more and are more meaningful to me than individual games.
Okay. How about when you decided to bring your coaching career to a close? Could you just share, Coach, how that decision got made?
Well, nobody believes it, but I'll repeat it. I had no intention of retiring seconds before I decided to retire. I don't know exactly why, but anyway, we had just won an overtime game from the University of Louisville, coached by Denny Crum, who played for me and also was my assistant, a wonderful assistant. And we'd had a wonderful game, I think one of the finest games in which I was ever involved. Both teams played extremely well. We were very fortunate to win the game, but we'd have been unfortunate to lose it, just as they were. It's just sort of that kind of a game. Either team could have won it. And I, going off for a visit with Denny, and told him that I knew how difficult it was, that either team could have won that game. And I said, of course, the proper team did, you know. But anyway, I found that for my first time in all my teaching, I found I didn't want to go to the press room. I didn't want to go to the press room. I don't know why. Maybe I hadn't been feeling the best in the world. My wife wasn't too well. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. And maybe the fact that I never permitted the media to come into the dressing rooms after games. I didn't think that was proper. I don't have any players. They wanted to go out and take them outside and talk to them, but I wouldn't let the media come in. Basketball dressing rooms are usually rather small. And the tournament committee passed a rule that year that you'd have to let them in. And that's all right. If they feel that should be done, I'll not object to that. I'll go along with it. But the chairman of the rules committee said, that'll take care of Wooden. And I didn't like that. That hurt my feelings, and that's too bad, because that's my fault. I take blame. And maybe subconsciously that had something to do with it. I don't know. But anyway, instead of going to the press room, I headed for the dressing room, and I called my players together. He was just getting ready to get in the shower, and told them how proud I was of them. They hadn't given me a problem on or off the court the entire year. And I don't know how we'll do Monday night against Kentucky. I think we'll do all right. I think we have enough size to compete with their unusual size, and I know we're quicker, and you know what I think about quickness, young men, and so I think we'll do all right. But regardless of how it comes out, I've never had a team of which I'm more proud. And that's a nice thing to say about the last team you'll ever teach. Well, they were all astounded. My trainer and my assistants, everybody, nobody knew it. No, I didn't even know it until that particular time. And then I went to the press room, and I knew some question will come up. And some question, when it came up, I said essentially to the press about the same thing. And my director kept me up all night trying to talk me out of it. And maybe I'm stubborn. But I truly hadn't. I had a thought prior to do that I would coach 2, possibly 3 more years. Probably not over that. But I didn't want to leave the cupboard bare when I left, and I knew that I could see for the next 3 or 4 years UCLA is going to be a contender. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they're going to be one that went, because I left some great players that were coming back, and I had some great players coming in that I'd already recruited coming in, and so I knew it wasn't leaving the cupboard bare, so that was okay.
Coach, as we look at those roads behind, as we look at those roads ahead, you know, I think about a story that you tell that involves a major league umpire. Could you share that? That's one of my favorite stories. I think the audience would enjoy hearing it tonight.
Well, George Moriarty was in the Major League Baseball umpire, and I think he did in a poem that he wrote what I tried to do in the development of the pyramid. He called it the road ahead or the road behind. Incidentally, he spelled Moriarty with only one I. That was bad, because Major League Baseball, they noticed little things like that, and they often told him that even though there was only one I in his name, there was one more than he had in his head. But he wrote something called The Road Ahead or Road Behind. He said, sometimes I think the fates must grin as we denounce them and insist the only reason we can't win is the fates themselves have missed. Yet there lives the ancient claim, we win or lose within ourselves. The shining trophies on our shelves can never win tomorrow's game. You and I know deeper down there's always a chance to win the crown, but when we fail to give our best, we simply haven't met the test of giving all and saving none, of playing through, not letting up. It's bearing down that wins the cup, of dreaming there's a goal ahead, of hoping when our dreams are dead, of praying when our hopes have fled, yet losing, not afraid to fall if gamely we have given all, for who can ask more of a man than giving all within his span? Giving all, it seems to me, is not so far from victory, and so the fates are seldom wrong. No matter how they twist and wind, it's you and I who make our fates. We open up or close the gates on the road ahead or the road behind, and I think that's true. It's up to ourselves, without blaming others. It's up to ourselves to make the most of what we have. I liked it. I think he was doing what I was trying to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Coach John Wooden.
Thank you very much.
You know, there are so many questions that you could ask Coach, and we could go on for hours and hours and hours, and there's frankly nothing, no better way to spend your time, and nothing I enjoy more. But I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. We have a lot of interesting relationships with Coach in the room, and some people that go way back in his past, and great basketball fans and great teachers in the room. So there's lots of subjects that we could address. We've got 2 mics, one on both, actually 4 mics, 2 on both corners here and also in the back. So if you've got a question that you'd like to ask Coach Wooden, we'd like you to just file up to the mic, and we'd be happy to spend the next 15 minutes or so taking some questions.
Coach Wooden, Frank Kendrick. I, too, as a Purdue graduate and followed in your footsteps there from Indianapolis myself. I just think that you walk on water. I've always thought that as a person and as a coach. But my question is, I have a question, and I don't know if you ever get into doing this, but I'd like to, by position, I'd like to ask you, who do you think are the 5 greatest college players that ever played, and who do you think is the greatest player that ever played?
Well, you know, that's often difficult. And I will not include any of my players. It's excluding any of the players that I have. I would say I think Bill Russell is the most valuable pro player that's ever played. I believe that, and I think it's been proven. I think that there's never been a better forward in the NBA than Larry Bird. And I think that you've got to consider Elgin Baylor as one of the very best, and Julius Erving. And you can never forget Oscar Robertson. And Michael Jordan wasn't bad. And there are others, but certainly those are among the best. And centers, I said I didn't want to include them, but it didn't include. I did say Bill Russell, didn't I? He's the most valuable. Maybe not the best. I don't think he's the best, but I think he's the most valuable. There's a difference between being the best and being the most valuable in all positions. But I'd like to have Jerry West on my team, all right, teaching. I'd like to have John Havlicek on my team if I were teaching. And so there are many others, but to boil it down to that would be impossible. And those are things that are good things to talk about and argue back and forth. And you do that about any sport, whether it be baseball or football or whatnot. Is Barry Bonds a better home run hitter than Babe Ruth? And so on.
Coach, who would you consider in today's game the best coaches, the best programs, if you can mention a few?
There again. That's something that I'm most reluctant to do. I'd leave out somebody. I think there are many. Many of the best jobs are done by coaches that you don't know, and maybe I don't know either. They're teaching in places where they don't have the opportunity to be in the limelight. Sir Thomas Gray, in his Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard, one verse says, "Full many a gem, a purest ray serene, the deep unfathomed caves of ocean bear. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness on the desert air." Are they less beautiful because no one sees them? I don't think so. I think that's the way of coaches. There are so many that maybe be doing a better job. To say that you start considering great coaches, there are so many you'd have to. I'd say because of in recent years, Mike Krzyzewski, I think his name would always come up. I'm sure he would. And he's a great coach. But he may not be better than some whose name that I can't even think of. But he's doing a great job, and so many others are too. There's a comparably young man named Steve Hawkins coaching somewhere. So there are many in the limelight, that there are many that aren't in the limelight that are doing just as good. And too much is based on won-loss percentage. And that's not an adequate way anymore. It is going back to my original idea of success as far as the grades in schools. I had youngsters who got C in my class that I did very well. And maybe youngsters that got B definitely should have been getting an A, and so on.
Coach, as a follow-up to that question, have there been coaching styles that you've observed that are somewhat different from yours, but which still lead to success? What are some of the other styles that you've observed?
Bobby Knight, for one. A great coach. Probably no one in the game knows the game better, teaches it better. His methods I don't like. I don't approve of his methods, but he's great. And his style would be entirely different. like in baseball, I like Walt Alston's style. I like Mike Scioscia's style. I'm talking about those in Los Angeles now, but others, they're not the fiery type of it. I think they do a great job, and that type appeals to me. For example, I never tried to fire up teams. I don't believe in that. I believe for every peak there's a valley, and if you can fire them up too much, I think there'll be a valley following that. And so I didn't believe in that. I wanted them calm and within themselves. And and let's just give you one example I think was a little different from mine. Tom Landry is a little different from Vince Lombardi. Both great.
Coach, I was wondering, does it give you great pride to see coaches like Steve Hawkins carry on your philosophies? And do you open up the newspaper the next day to see how their teams are doing?
Of course it does. Any of the players or young men or coaches with whom I've had an association with in the past, I watch them more, of course, and am interested in how they're going to do. I watch them more than others that might be, from the public point of view, might be getting a little more attention, but I'm still interested in the ones with whom I've had a personal relationship. I followed Western Michigan pretty close. I was pleased to see them, how they were doing last year. I followed.
Coach, how do you feel about some of the excessive complaining and some of the excessive celebrating that you see some of our athletes doing nowadays?
You had a sore spot there. I detest this thing drawing attention to yourselves, as I mentioned one time, maybe it was earlier today. Maybe tackling a football game, you're way behind, 30 points behind the last quarter, and you'd think they won the game. And the guy hits a home run, and goes into the stands, and he walks around the bases, and I think he won the game. They're way behind at the time. I don't see that. I detest showmanship. I didn't permit showmanship, and I don't like it at all. And I'd say the vast majority of you, ladies and gentlemen, probably like it. You probably enjoy the dunk. I hate the dunk. If I had my way, we'd abolish the dunk. If I had my way, we'd abolish freshman eligibility. Absolutely. And but people love it. I love it, and it's probably going to stay. But I just don't like excessive showmanship. I never wanted excessive jubilation because we outscored somebody in a game, nor did I want excessive dejection if we were outscored. You're not going to feel the same. That is true. But I want nothing excessive. I want that peace within yourselves, knowing that you tried your best, and then will not have anything excessive either way. You can't get that 100%. No, of course, that's perfection, but that's what you're trying to, and that's what I'm looking for. I want all my players to be trying to be perfect. I know they can't be perfect in any area, but I want them to try. They can try. We can all try. And that's what I want. I don't like the showmanship at all.
Coach, you think anybody can come close to your winning streak ever again?
I didn't understand that.
You think anybody can ever come close to your winning streak ever, 88 games?
Oh, of course. Of course. It'll be a little while, but...
That's a lot of wins in a row.
I probably won't live to see it. Several years ago, if somebody would have said to you that a shortstop in big league baseball is going to break Lou Gehrig's consecutive game record, it's possible. A shortstop, a middle infielder, a catcher, they don't have a chance of ever. It's maybe possible, not likely, but it's possible that other positions might, but certainly not a middle infielder or catcher. So who broke it by a large margin? A shortstop. And just short time before that. I'm not alone in saying that. I heard a lot of people that supposedly knew their business about writing and covering it, saying that nobody will ever break Lou Gehrig's considered begin records. So some records are more difficult than others, but changes of rules and sort of make changes. So some things they make more difficult, and other things they make easier by the changes. So it's not impossible, no.
Thank you.
It wouldn't be reasonable to say that's the only error that could have been done. It wasn't done before. So is that the only error that could be done? I don't believe that.
Coach, when you would prepare for a season and started building a team, could you give your thoughts about how you would try to build cohesiveness in a team, especially as it dealt with the second and third units of a team?
Always you have to think about the cohesiveness, and that's one of the things I think. One of the things I had is that I said one of my 3 rules I always took: to never criticize your teammate. I wouldn't permit that at all. And your biggest job, my situation, right or wrong, it became my philosophy. I'm going to have 7 players on my squad that are going to carry the load until the game is really won or lost. I'll probably not use over maybe just a minute or two somebody in, but generally speaking, 7 players I'll have an extra backline man, an extra frontline man, and that'll be it. And now, what's the tough job? It's getting the others on your squad who are very essential. They fill an important role on the development of those, and they have to be ready in case their chance comes, because something could happen to one of those that are playing ahead of them. But that's the tough job of getting them to accept that. You're not always successful in getting to do that. I had a player didn't speak to me for 25 or 30 years after he graduated. Now he's one of my closest friends among my players. I see him regularly, but oh boy, I had trouble with him getting except he thought I didn't like him. It didn't have anything to do with it. I just liked the play of players playing ahead of him. And having whether I personally liked him or not. I personally liked him. He was an outstanding student. I know he's going to do well, and when he graduates, whatever he did, and he did do well. He produced Touched by an Angel. He produced Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. He produced Walker, Texas Ranger. He produced Caroline in the City, and a lot of things like that. Exceptionally well, outstanding. And he finally, after a while, decided that what was making him successful in all this was things that I was trying to teach him and he didn't get. And so after 25 or 30 years, we're just like that.
Great. Let's take a question over here.
Coach, I'm George Slaughter's daughter. I'm so thrilled to be here to see you in person. We're in town because my youngest son is starting life as a Bronco tomorrow. And I'm only sorry that my dad couldn't be here with us tonight. My dad always said about you that you were first and foremost an educator. And because my dad was a teacher, I think that that's something that was very dear to his heart. I'd like to ask you, given the climate of college athletics these days, do you think that it's possible to put the student back into student athletics?
Do I think, I didn't quite catch that. Did Trump to what now?
Is it possible, Coach, to put the student back in student athletics?
Of course it is. Of course it is. We definitely should do that. And I do consider myself a teacher. I think that's all. Any person in position of leadership is a teacher. You're a teacher to someone. Parents are teachers. In my early years of teaching, I ran across a couple of things. One was no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves. And I know we're getting away from the student athlete and making it more athlete-student. And I disagree with it, but it can be taken care of and should be taken care of. And I'm optimistic that eventually it will be.
Great. Let's take another question on this side. Okay, great.
Coach, I was just wondering what your number one piece of advice would be for young athletes.
I never give advice. I'll give suggestions or opinions, but never advice. The cornerstones of the pyramid: industrious and enthusiasm. Find something you're enthusiastic about doing and work hard at it. And I don't think much more. And then just the life you lead, being considerate of others, work hard at what you're doing, and lead your life being considerate of others, and things will turn out as they should. Not necessarily the way you hoped for and the name you wanted, but they'll turn out as they should. Okay. Patience.
Okay, let's take one more question here.
Coach, good evening on behalf of the Hunters here tonight, and thank you to Western Michigan University. Just a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much. Pauley Pavilion's a great venue in college basketball. You know that. You built the place. But outside of Los Angeles, describe that night at the Houston Astrodome, national television, 50,000 people. Describe that, please.
Well, it was a great game. We lost the game 71-69 to Houston, where Elvin Hayes had one of the truly great games. Before, I think they said better than 55,000 people. 53,000, I think they said, paid, and 55,000 in total attendance. But it was no place to play. The floor's out here, and you're way away from the floor. And I told my players, you have to use the restroom, do it first, because you can't, have to walk a quarter of a mile. You get back there after we come out on the floor. And the lights it was the first game of this type. It was good for basketball. I didn't think it would be. I was wrong. But they had the lights bearing down on each basket, spotlights, to try to get enough light for television, which they weren't doing too much of at that time. It was difficult. But the way the lights went down, I didn't think anybody could shoot well, and Hayes shot their eyes out. And then I had a player that shot pretty well, too. Lucius Allen shot pretty well for us, but nobody else did. Louis Alcindor, who never shot under 50% in 87 of the 88 games he played, made 3 out of 18, I think. But he had a vertical double vision. He'd been in the hospital for over a week, and had missed the 2 previous games and a half through eye problem, and had to wear goggles forever after that. And boy, it was a great game for basketball. They say that that was the largest televised audience for a sporting event that had ever been up to that particular time. And it spread, and it was good. I didn't want to. Our athletic director talked to me about it, and I didn't want to do it. And I said, no, that's making a spectacle out of a game I love. And he said, no, it'll do a lot for basketball. And he told me other things, and then he also told me how much money we're going to get. And I said, oh, yeah, we'll play. I think we were both right. I think it's a terrible place to play as far as having a real game is concerned on the floor. Now, they proved it later. We played in a national tournament there for a national championship later, and conditions were much, much better, but it still wasn't quite what it was. At that time, it was really bad. But it was an outstanding basketball game, even up all the way. And Hayes got 2 free throws right at the last. We had a chance to get a shot, and we didn't get a shot. We had a miscue and didn't get a shot. Following that, but Hayes made those 2 free throws on a foul that, of course, we didn't make. But everything worked out all right because we played them in the tournament later that year, and in the NCAA tournament, which really mattered, And one time we led them by 40 points until I sort of made a few changes, and we ended up by winning 101-69. So I think that game warmed us up to the later one.
Okay. Let's take a question over here.
My name's Sammy Johnston, and I wondered if I could get an autograph.
This is the only one of the evening, but we're going to get her an autograph. Okay. What's your first name?
Sammy.
What is it?
Sammy.
Sammy?
Yes.
Okay. And let's take one last question over on the other side.
Yeah,
Coach, you wanna
Coach
personalize it?
Coach Wooden,
This is to Sammy.
Consider
Sammy?
you a great coach, but I think you're a greater person. When people look back on your life, how would you like them to remember you?
One of the things I've noticed when Coach Wooden signs autographs, when he signs it to adults, he signs it best wishes. When he signs it to young adults or children, he signs it love. I think it's really who the man is. Coach, the question was, when you look back on your life, how would you really like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a normal person that was considerate of others, and that'd be enough for me.
You know, we just asked the question about looking back, Coach, but didn't you write a little verse called Don't Look Back?
Yes.
Would you share that with us tonight?
The years have left their imprint on my hands and on my face. Erect no longer is my walk, and slower is my pace. But there is no fear within my heart because I'm growing old. I only wish I had more time to better serve my Lord. When I've gone to Him in prayer, He has brought me inner peace, and soon all cares and worries and other problems cease. He's helped me in so many ways, He's never let me down. Why should I fear the future when soon I could be near His crown? Though I know down here my time is short, there's endless time up there, and He will forgive and keep me ever in His loving care. May I not waste a day that's left to glorify the name of the one who died that we might live, and for our sins took all the blame.
We want to close tonight by bringing back Coach Steve Hawkins. How about a great round of applause for the two great coaches in the building tonight? Coach Steve Hawkins, Coach John Wooden.
Great job, Coach.
Thank you, Steve.
Wonderful. Wonderful group. Wow, I had no idea how many people we actually had in here. I would have really been scared if I had known that. Coach, I've got one final selfish request. Every camp ended the exact same way. We started camp with learning how to put on our shoes and socks, but we finished camp the exact same way with a poem. The little fellow follows me. I was wondering if we could wrap it up with the story behind the little fellow that follows me and that poem, please.
In 1936, my son was born, and I taught English at the high school in South Bend, and I just finished a project editing a book for a Harcourt Racing Company, and they sent me the check, which is the reason I did it, and they sent me a set of encyclopedias. I'll bet there were that many. If you look against the Book of Knowledge today, you'd say, well, I guess not much happened for 1936, but I think they did. But they also sent me a picture, which I had framed, and it's in my condo today, and it's always been where I could see it every day when I'm there. It was a picture of a man walking along the seashore with his little son, trying to step in his father's footsteps in the sand before the wind whisked them away. And there's some lines along the side that say this: "A careful man I must always be, a little fella follows me. I know I dare not go astray, for fear he'll go the self-same way. I cannot once escape his eyes, whate'er he sees me do, he tries. Like me, he says he's going to be, this little chap who follows me. He thinks that I am good and fine, believes in every word of mine. The base in me he must not see, this little chap who follows me. I must be careful as I go through summer's sun and winter's snow, because I am building for the years to be this little chap who follows me. And that's just like all of you. You're building somebody. There's somebody watching you. Be careful.
Once again, I want to thank all of you for showing up tonight for a very special evening for an evening with Coach Wooden. I hope you got as much out of that as we have back in the back. It's been a wonderful night, and we look forward to seeing you all. It won't be too long here. We got football season first, but it won't be too long before the weather turns and the ball starts bouncing again. And I, excuse me, and I can hardly wait for that. Thank you so much again, and please be careful going home. Good night.